Welcome to a healthy living video blog at workoutmaster.com. This is Ruben.
And this is Aram.
Today we have another exciting episode for you. We're going to talk again about back pain, and specifically we want to brush up on what we call intra-abdominal pressure mechanism. Let's go ahead.
Absolutely. There's many different reasons how we spoke on a previous episode on back pain, on how the back can manifest pain. But the one thing that I think we have to start with is begin to understand how things should work on a proper environment, and then from there on restore the body to those proper mechanics in order to avoid further disruption of the mechanisms and avoid pain altogether.
Okay, so this is one thing that we want to learn. So anywhere from rib cage and up, we have big muscles, and we have, most importantly, bones. Anywhere from the hip and lower, we have big muscles and the bones. In the midsection out here, between the ribs and the pelvis, the only bony structure that we have is called vertebrae. And a vertebrae, as you guys know, it gets stacked with the discs in between. So you have a vertebra, then you have a disc, then you have a vertebra, then a disc, which creates a lot of ability to be mobile. Now, with the mobility, it comes, it's very important for a human body because we can do all kinds of different things.
And with mobility comes also very possible, very probable instability at the same time.
Exactly. So this is the thing that we would want to understand. How come we have such an unstable spine? Is that unstable on its own, or there's a mechanism to protect it?
There's a very strong, very efficient, and yet very simple is a very tricky word, a mechanism that allow us to actually create a girdle, a belt, that actually supports all those very movable parts.
Absolutely. So we would want to go in an explanation of a core. You guys probably heard a lot about core and say training a core, doing exercises for a core. Now, I've been a trainer for a long time. I even ask trainers, not everybody can define exactly how the hell do you train a core, or what the core is.
Absolutely.
And then I have like exact knowledge of how does it work. And I want to brush up exactly on why is this called a core muscles. So what happens is this particular part of the body is very unstable. Yeah. So since it's potentially very unstable, and it's one of the weakest ones unless it gets supported by something. Now your body does have mechanism, and it's called intra-abdominal pressure mechanism that's supposed to support the structure. The way it works, if you take your belly button...
Yeah, first mention the major groups of muscle that make up for that.
Good.
Alright, so we have from the bottom up per se. We have the pelvic floor. We know where those muscles are, alright? These are the very base of our pelvis. Then in the front, we have, or all around it per se, we have the transverse abdominis. It's the deepest layer of muscle, and it goes from the spine all the way around back into the spine. So it basically almost looks like a belt, or the inner tube of a tire if it was flat. Then in the back part, or in the back, we have the multifidi, which is a group of muscles that actually connect vertebrae to vertebrae and give stability and feedback to the nervous system of what's going on. At the very top, to create the dome of that cylinder, is actually the diaphragm, which not only is it a respiratory muscle, but it's also a very powerful stabilizer of the spine as well.
Absolutely. So what happens if you take your belly button and you basically draw it in without moving anything else but just a belly button, what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to activate this intra-abdominal pressure mechanism, which means when you're going to draw the tummy in, you're going to co-contract all the muscles that Ruben just mentioned. So the multifidi muscles of your back, transverse abdominals of your abdominals, the pelvic floor muscle, and the diaphragm, all together going to co-contract in what will be a cylinder with your vertebrae being right in the middle of it. Now by cross-section of it, it's going to become the strongest joint in your body, because the cross-section of your midsection will be pretty much bigger than, let's say, your leg.
Of course.
So it will be, if it's that big, it's very hard to break, and that's why we call it a core, and that is why it's so important. So majority of problems come out in play when this particular mechanism does not work. And major progress that people make with the back pain is then when create this particular intra-abdominal pressure mechanism.
Absolutely. Is to reteach or relearn or unforget patterns that might be faulty by design and reproduction that actually can inhibit the function of those muscles. By nature, the way the body is designed, they all function, and please don't let this confuse you when I use this term. They all work on the same reflex loop. That means that when one muscle contracts, as Aram just mentioned earlier, the other ones co-contract. They work all as a functional unit. And it's very important not to teach the body to do things separately, like for example, to follow approaches to training your core based on bodybuilding nonsense. Bodybuilding, we know what it is, but in regards to actually improving the function of those muscles to condition and to stabilize the spine, they're pretty much zero.
Absolutely. So this is another important thing about intra-abdominal pressure mechanisms. Let's say you had to go get a surgery, or there's no other option but the surgery for your back. Regardless if you go to the surgery or not, you still must create the very functional core.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So regardless of what you guys gonna do with the back, or whatever the chances that you have to heal it or not heal, even if somebody will tell you that the back pain gonna stay with you for a long time, you still will benefit from this. It's basically a corset,
a girdle, yeah,
by your own body. So you create your own corset. So if you learn how to do it, this is gonna save you a lot of trouble and very much possibly get you out of back pain quite rapidly.
And another analogy that might use you to get a better idea, when those muscles function well, they will serve almost as, well, not almost, actually better than a weightlifting belt with proper mechanics. We will get into maybe another episode why weightlifting belts, they're so dangerous and potentially can actually lead to back pain in the future.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to say about this particular?
I think that pretty much sums it up. Is understanding what muscles are involved in the function, how the muscles may work. If you have further interest in the subject, just Google, intra-abdominal pressure, or the mechanism in which all those muscles work with the same reflex loop, and then you'll begin to understand better. But there's many things that can happen that we're going to put forward in other episodes, that when one of those systems does not work properly, it inhibits and diminishes the function return of the other muscles, and therefore leaves your spine, like you have heard us mention earlier, of a naked spine. That means a spine that does not have the muscles that support and that control the movement of those joints. And as you understand, each vertebrae is a joint of its own, and therefore can lead to a lot of pain. Because, not to mention to you, which I'm sure that you already know, that through the center of the vertebral column, you have your spinal cord, and the spinal cord is part of the central nervous system. You don't want to mess with that. You want to make sure that the spinal cord is always intact and that the vertebral column is always integral in its function, so it can support the precious subject that goes inside your central nervous system.
Here you have it, guys. So this is pretty straight and simple. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it and we'll be able to answer it as soon as possible. Remember, your future looks better already, and if you share this episode with your friends and family who have a back pain, then their future looks better too. Thank you very much for watching. Until the next time.